Mortal Kombat Armageddon is the 8th main installment in the entire series, and also the final game to be released on the PS2 and Xbox in 2006. The game itself uses the Renderware engine and was one of the final projects that Midway Games had ended up making for Mortal Kombat itself. The gameplay entirely for itself maintained many of the same core elements as Deadly Alliance and Deception, which also came out on those systems. If you guys ever wanted a Mortal Kombat game to be stacked in terms of the game's roster, then this was the very one that you have been playing. This game had a buttload of characters for you guys to select, new and older characters from the past games themselves, including some different ones that were probably made for the game's campaign. The game itself also still has the melee combat that was adapted from Mortal Kombat 4, and the game will make some different changes. For example, the fatality system. It no longer has you do random fatalities at your own selection. Instead, they have this thing called the creative fatality. I don't know what it is about it, but it's just weird to hear about it. What it essentially is that you're making random moves and then you perform these fatality moves. But the more fatality you do in terms of hitting the enemy, the more points you'll get in terms of earning gold. Yeah, that's right. Instead of doing traditional stuff, it's more randomized, it seems. And there's really no guide as to what you're supposed to be doing with this whole fatality system. Instead, you might as well just look at the online little thing in order to know which combo you're pretty much going to be performing. It doesn't matter if it's on PS2 or Xbox. But the thing about it is that this is the first and only Mortal Kombat game to have a creative fighter. You can do a whole bunch of fighters in the game, and it's been pretty much utilized. Now, for the game itself too, it still has the conquest stuff, the online play, but there is also some mini games like Mortar Combat. It's something like Mario Kart, to be exact, and there's also puzzle combat as well. So for the game itself, it's 4 players on the original Xbox and 2 players on the PS2 version. Now later on, we would get a Wii version of the game, which is still the same name. But that one, if you guys didn't like the motion controls, then that's okay. Because they pretty much brought in the classic controller support, as well as the GameCube controller, for those who aren't going to like the motion controls, which I think was a good call if you ask me. Instead of an online mode, they had themselves a separate training mode where you use the Wii remotes just to utilize the motions. There's also one exclusive character that was brought into the game called Chameleon. Not to be confused with the male counterpart Chameleon, as both of them have slightly tweaked spelling into the name itself. So female Chameleon was pretty much absent on the PS2 and Xbox version, and this was something that a lot of people noticed, and they demanded the character be brought into the game, and that's exactly what they did. And despite all of this, the game received positive reviews, but most of the criticism went towards the fatality system. They've also stated that the 62 warriors was a massive achievement, at over 60 characters, but again, the Wii version had an exclusive character, so you could say that makes it 63. In terms of the conquest mode, you play as Taven, and it's your job to take down, Blaze. Yeah, that's your little thing, because I guess your parents separated you and your evil brother, and now you have to go fight along the way. The game is more of a combination between a beat-em-up and a fighting game, which you'll see what I mean when you play it, because when you play the conquest mode, you'll be fighting without the fighting game implementations, but sometimes you'll still have that. But that's just more of something you should know. There's collectibles for you guys to get as well, and some coins. You should definitely look for collectibles, because this can be the fastest way to unlock your in-game characters instead of trying to go to the crypt and buy these coins every time. So that's just something in a nutshell you should know about in terms of Conquest mode, but the game itself did win an award for Best Fighting Game at the Spike Game Awards in 2006. It was named the Best PS2 Fighting Game from IGN. The official magazine of Xbox put the game as the Xbox Game of the Year in the 2006 issue, and Gaming Target put the game and its 52 games will still be playing from 2006 selection. But it was nominated for Fighting Game of the Year, which of course didn't win. But yeah, this game will definitely forever be known as the game that have a million fighters for you to play. And it even include a bonus DVD in terms of the premium edition on the PS2 in North America. Now, the original Xbox version never came out in European territories. But like I said, for the Wii version, there is some new stuff, but that's about it. There were new menu screens as well, but again, there wasn't any online stuff to be found in terms of the game itself. So with Mortal Kombat, what did they do differently besides everything else I just said? Well, they've also added an air combo system, which allows you to fight while you're on the air, as well as a breaker-styled parry system that you guys can utilize against your opponents. Now, it's not like I used this for myself, but I already just mentioned about the Creative Fighter. This includes at least 14 different classes for the characters, as well as like you can pretty much create any of the characters that you can put out, and it's pretty much enough room to make a lot of characters that you desire as to what you wanted to create. Now, even though the online servers are officially down, it doesn't mean you still can't play online. If you guys have the original Xbox system and have the service called Insignia installed to the system, you can basically play this online with some of the people, but I recommend trying to see if anyone is playing the game online first before you do anything ridiculous. Oh, and as for arcade mode, well, don't get me started. Well, you know how the traditional endings of these arcades always have you look into like some sort of wallpaper screen, and then it show you what happens or tell you what happens? Well, let's forget about that and replace everything that was good and make all the characters dance. Yeah, that's right. Each time you play arcade and beat it, you'll just get an ending. They'll tell you what happened, but all they see you is you just dancing after you defeated Blaze. It doesn't even matter which character either. You just do these little fighting dance poses or whatever, which I thought was just ridiculous for a Mortal Kombat game to do it. I've seen some people blaming the game for its limitations, but it's funny because I've seen games on PS2 that can push the system to its limitations, like GTA San Andreas for example. And so this was pretty much the last ever Mortal Kombat game to utilize 3D elements, as that was just it. Like the first couple of ones was Deadly Alliance and Deception, that also be on the same systems. But maybe I'll talk about those whenever I get the time and day to play them. But Mortal Kombat Armageddon will forever be known as the weirdest game in the series just for its gigantic stack of roster and something new they tried doing but failed to capitalize. So after this game came out, they made this, well, it's more of a sequel than a reboot, because it takes place immediately after Armageddon, that being Mortal Kombat 9 or just Mortal Kombat in general. So this was just the last time that this is the game that was published by Midway. This wasn't the last Mortal Kombat related game to be published by Midway, as we would get DC Universe versus Mortal Kombat, the most downgraded game that people will complain about, and I can see why. It's a shame this game wasn't made backwards compatible, considering they've already given us the 2 games in the Mortal Kombat series to do it. Well, what I just said and the reboot one. Yeah, it's kind of weird, but again, if you guys were pretty much curious about Mortal Kombat Armageddon, then this is probably the ones you may be known for seeing some random creative fighters, well, fight each other in the game itself. If you guys ever do want to play Mortal Kombat games, then I don't care which one you start, but just to know, this is the 8th installment, and it's just something you should probably look into before, well, maybe the price might rank up, which I hope it doesn't, because each year these prices of these retro games are just starting to get ridiculous. So hopefully one day we'll get this game on modern systems if there's going to be such thing. I mean, it is quite possible because the original trilogy did do that on PS3 and Xbox 360, but they were more like a lackluster versions, to be honest. Maybe I'll talk about them one day whenever I see fit, but Mortal Kombat Armageddon, well, it did something different. It did pretty good and also failed in both ways possible. But that was the last time we've ever had melee weapons for a Mortal Kombat game, I should also mention. But that's all I'll be saying for about Mortal Kombat Armageddon, and that'll be it.